And we're back.
We're back.
We're back.
Yes, we're back. They're back.
Yes, we're back. Welcome to part 2 of my 2-part series on Ready Player One. Last episode, I talked about my feelings on the novel, so this time we're going to compare it to the movie. If you missed part 1 and want to check it out, you can click right over here. Here's a quick recap. Ready Player One is a story set in the near future where most of humanity spends their time living in the Oasis, a virtual reality world somewhere between the Matrix and Second Life. But when James Halliday, the inventor of the Oasis, dies, he leaves behind a Willy Wonka scavenger hunt, willing ownership of the Oasis to the winner. With control of the Earth's greatest resource at risk, the global population immerses itself in Halliday's life, which contains, wouldn't you know it, an obsession with nostalgic 80s pop culture. Ready Player One, the book, had a premise that triggered my imagination, and that's not a small thing. That's why I was so massively disappointed when the book's imagination didn't live up to its promise. But the movie was a fresh start, with the legendary Steven Spielberg directing and producing, and the previews were full of scenes that had nothing to do with the book that showed a refocusing on story and character and theme. So in spite of all my problems with the book, I went into this movie very excited, and by the 1 hour mark, I was ready for it to be over. So in honor of Steven Spielberg, we're gonna play a game.
It's time for another good idea, bad idea. Good idea.
For what it's worth, I do think the movie is better than the book, but I also literally fell asleep 5 different times when trying to read the book, so don't everybody get too excited. For me, the most insufferable parts of the book were the constant walls of text that existed for no other reason than to list references at you, every time it would kill any sense of momentum or immersion. And this is where the movie has the upper hand. A scene can have the Adam West Batmobile, Bigfoot, the DeLorean, the Akira bike, Christine, the A-Team van, and if you don't notice or don't recognize them, well, the story's going to keep on trucking anyway. This means the movie will have a lot more time to focus on things that matter.
Bad idea.
Unfortunately, the movie still thinks that seeing things that we recognize qualifies as engaging spectacle. This is the most heartbreaking part of this movie for me because Spielberg knows how to construct thrilling action and suspense set pieces that tell a story, but too often this movie felt like I was watching my friend's improv set. And it's 2018. Is anyone still impressed by seeing Thomas the Tank Engine race the truck from Maximum Overdrive or whatever? Shows like Robot Chicken have already done pop culture mashups to death years ago. And generally with a more nuanced understanding of the material being referenced, even if it's just to make the most accurate Transformers fart joke possible or something. But I have to admit,
good idea.
The Oasis is actually interesting in the movie. We get to see zany fantasy worlds, people interacting. This isn't the Oasis of the book, which seemed to consist of nothing but abandoned planets filled with generic houses or whatever. This is a world that I believe people would want to visit. I can understand the appeal of this place.
Bad idea.
I can't understand the characters, though, and I don't mean that I don't relate to them or something. I mean, I don't understand who they are. What distinguishes them? What challenges them? What are their dreams and motivations? Besides just winning the hunt and becoming rich. 2 members of our main cast only get referenced in narration or stand in the background until halfway through the movie when the movie starts treating them like they're beloved characters out of nowhere. 1 member is female with a male avatar, and we never once get any hint as to how this informs who she is, which seems like a very obvious, easy way to offer some character development. Probably the best developed is the love interest, who mentions that she wants to win so she can help others. Hey, that's something. We also find out she leads the Resistance.
Welcome to the rebellion, Wade.
Or something like that, I think. It doesn't not matter. The Resistance, its goals, its members are never mentioned again. I have no idea why they bring it up in the first place. This should be so easy. This is a story where every single person literally covers themselves in pop iconography that can be used to communicate their personalities. 1 guy drives a DeLorean. 1 pilots an Iron Giant. 1 drives the bike from Akira. But it never feels intentional, it just feels random. How hard would it be to throw out some hint about why they value the DeLorean over any single other car they could imagine? Why the Iron Giant of all the giant robots? Especially since the Iron Giant is an anti-gun character who's repurposed in this movie as a giant pimped out gun. I feel like that should be addressed to some degree, right? But there is 1 character who does get some necessary attention.
Good idea.
The smartest decision that Ready Player One, the movie, makes is ditching the boring pop culture trivia challenges. You won't have to watch bug-eyed CGI cartoons, recite the screenplay of war games by memory, or spend 4 hours silently playing a perfect game of Pac-Man. I don't know who to thank for this, but someone along the way pointed out that Halliday's hunt should revolve around a unifying theme or a lesson. So each challenge isn't solved by memorizing the movies or games that Halliday loved, but by understanding who Halliday the person was. And that means that each challenge is only solved by playing the game wrong or in an unexpected way that reflects how Halliday wished the world could work. And that's great. It puts in place a solid mechanism for the plot to deliver a message to the characters and to the audience. But
Bad idea.
the movie doesn't go far enough. There's a sort of ambiguous moral that Halliday's head in the clouds whimsy is something to be revered, but it's also always shown as coming at the expense of the real world, and the takeaway is that we need to figure out how to balance the two. But for me, it feels like too little too late. The movie is completely uninterested in investigating the value of fantasy or the pop culture creations that are stuffed into every shot. There's really no nuance toward this topic at all. The Oasis is a game, yeah, but it's also a community where people can choose without limitation who or what they will be. And Ready Player One can't quite decide whether this is a beautiful expression of self or a frivolous distraction from real problems or something else entirely, which means that when we get to the movie's final thoughts, they ring kind of hollow or like a cop-out, like a parent saying, well, I understand what the big deal is with this Pokemon stuff, but as long as you get your homework done, I really don't care. And that feels so unsatisfying, like especially since like South Park made a more emotionally resonant movie addressing these exact same questions during the Bush administration.
Haven't Luke Skywalker and Santa Claus affected your lives more than most real people in this room? And the same can be said for Bugs Bunny and Superman and Harry Potter. They've changed my life, changed the way I act on the earth. They might be imaginary, but they're more important than most of us here. And they're all gonna be around long after we're dead. So in a way, those things are more realer than any of us.
What I'm saying is that if you can't bring more to the table than South Park did 10 years ago by this point, I think I'm allowed to be disappointed. But then again, maybe this movie was never interested in the perspectives of the people who consume all this pop culture stuff.
Good idea.
This is my single favorite thing about Ready Player One, the movie, and I can't actually prove that it exists. But when I watch this movie, I can't help but feel that I'm watching Steven Spielberg's autobiography. If you compare the book to the movie, the biggest change is that the book focuses entirely on our uber nerd main character and his obsession with nostalgia. The movie, on the other hand, refocuses on the Oasis's creator, Halliday, who can't accept that he's stumbled into the position of a secular god who shapes the way generations will see the world, because in his own mind, he's still a child who just wanted to share his passions with others. And that's such an oddly specific redirect, I can't help but assume that this was Spielberg's influence. Like, I know he doesn't have a screenwriting credit on this movie, but he did produce the thing, and knowing his career, it's entirely likely that he shared control of the story. And I think watching the movie from this perspective explains a lot of the confusing ideas in it. Because it's not actually about how fans view pop culture creations. It's about how pop culture creators view their fans. I'm expecting the next several years to be filled with video essays and thought pieces investigating the clues that Spielberg is giving us about his own life, like a real-world version of Halliday's Hunt. In a way, that's the most perfect thing that this movie could have been, I guess.
Bad idea.
This movie could have given us the coolest, most gung-ho, visually spectacular opening titles in movie history with a blank check to let their imagination run wild for a minute and throw anything they wanted on screen without constraint of story or theme or character. And what do they give us instead? White text on solid black. Like the budget ran out. Massive missed opportunity.